There's been times that I've been talking to people about Storyline compared to other authoring tools, and one of the most common things that I get told compared to other authoring tools is Storyline isn't as flexible as some other authoring tools. Now, hopefully, those of you that have been following me on this channel know that you can do a lot with JavaScript and Storyline to be able to customize and go out of the box on things that you can do. And I've been beta testing something that hopefully is going to come out very soon that is going to make Storyline even more flexible. And that is the JavaScript API. Now, it's not officially out yet, so there's two things that I wanted to cover. First of all, this is a beta version, so some of the things that I show you today may change by the time it actually gets released, so keep that in mind. Also, I don't know when this beta version is going to come out to everybody. It is a private beta right now, and I've been lucky enough to be able to test it out. And for this, I just wanted to show you basically what may be coming, what is possible, and some of the benefits to this as well. So I'm not going to get too much into the details of the JavaScript, but I am going to be talking about some of the things that it opens up for us. So let's go ahead and dive in here. And I have a sample project, and I have this opened up in the beta version of Storyline. The very first thing that I want to talk about is something that I got really excited about when I heard it. If you've watched any of my YouTube videos on how to get the ID to be able to talk to an object, that's one of the most important things in JavaScript is being able to talk to objects. You want to be able to animate, you want to be able to hide or show things. That is a pain in the butt right now with the current version because you have to preview the course and then you have to go into the inspect window. You have to use the arrow to select the object, then you have to scroll up a little bit to find the ID. This new version, if anything alone, if they just did this, actually would be worth it, in my opinion. So all you have to do to be able to talk to an object, for example, if I want to be able to animate this square in, all I have to do is go into my trigger here. So I'm going to go into a trigger and I'm going to select the drop-down box and then I'm going to go down to execute JavaScript. So this has not changed. This is the same that we've been doing from day one, basically. So I'm going to go into my JavaScript here. This is what has changed. This selector right here allows me to select objects on the stage. So if I want to be able to talk to an object to be able to animate it or to hide it or to show it or to do something with it, I don't have to inspect the window anymore. I can actually just select it from this drop-down box. So this is position 1 right here, and I click add. Boom. Hallelujah. Thank you, Storyline, for doing that. That alone makes this extremely powerful. So you don't have to go into the inspect, you don't have to go into the ID or anything like that. And notice that you're just referencing the object. Now, I don't think that is actually new. I think you could do that with a current version. I haven't tested that out in the current version. I was using the query selector to be able to select the object. So I think this is something that I could have done before, but right now it just says object and then it has the ID right there. It's not perfect because if I copy this object into another slide, or if I put it into a layer or something like that, the ID gets changed. To me, that doesn't bother me that much because I can just easily go in the drop-down box and get the new ID and swap it out. But for some people, it does bother them, and I get that. It is a hassle to have to go back in. So I do wish that you could actually customize it, but I also wish that you could add a class. If you're familiar with classes at all inside of programming, especially HTML, when you go into an object and you want to talk to several objects, you can have a class that applies to every object. And then you can animate everything within that object class, basically, without having to talk to each individual one. So if Storyline did something like that, I think that would be amazing. Now, I'm going to come back into here. I'm going to close that and I'm going to click OK. Another way that you can get that ID is if you right click. Now, this is what may change. The UI may be a little bit different when it gets released, but right now I can copy that ID just by right clicking on it and clicking on copy. Even that alone would have been nice to be able to get the ID and to go into the query selector and so forth. That is far beyond what the current version is. And I know some people have mentioned don't overhype this and stuff like that, but to me, that's exciting. That's exciting to be able to do that because it makes it a whole lot easier. This is first version of their API, so I'm excited for what may come down the road as well. Just to put this into perspective here, so I could target these objects a whole lot easier. That's step number 1. I can go in and get a bunch of these objects, which may be a pain to have a list of like 10 different ones. In this case, I have 5. But with that, I'm able to then animate objects in. So you can see as soon as this page loads, it's going to animate. It already did that because the page kind of took forever. But you can see as I hover over it, I'm animating in these objects. And when I move my mouse out, I'm animating out those objects. And if I click on a position here, this is the next big thing that I am super excited about. In all of my GreenSock animations, if you do just a GreenSock animation, GreenSock still works, so the GSAP library still works. I still call it GreenSock, but the GSAP library still works. And before, if you tried to position or animate something to a very specific location, if you tried to then resize that object, it would mess things up, or it would kind of move the object off the stage a little bit, or not exactly in the right position. So this is the next big thing that this API actually does, is it gives you more accurate positioning. So I can actually tell a specific object to move in this area, and it works every time on every size. So that's something worth. I get overhyped about this because yes, I do. I get excited about it because it's better than what we had before. And it seems like Storyline is targeting and making improvements to developers that makes our life a whole lot easier. And I'm talking about custom developers, people who are trying to go outside of the box here, which I think hopefully that is you all in this channel. So that's why I get excited about it. All right, so if I go ahead and I click on this, you can see that I can position that person in a very specific location. So on a button in a game, I can always position them in position 2, position 3, position 4. That is huge right there. And if I resize this, watch what happens. Now it's going to, let me actually go into portrait mode here. And it does reset this page, but if I resized it in a browser, if I was to publish it out and resize it in a browser, it keeps it at where it was, which is huge. All right, so now you can see it still goes to that exact same location. So being able to accurately position things using GreenSock, and let me pull up that code just so you can see here. I do grab all of the different IDs, and then I animate in the objects from where they're at here. So when the page first loads, it will animate in. And then basically what I do is I position these objects. If it's true, if a variable right here is true, it will animate in. If the variable is false, it will animate out basically. So that's how I'm doing that. And I'll have videos on how to dive into that a little bit more as well as this gets released. This is just giving you an overview. So you can get a lot more accurate positioning and you can tell things where to go specifically as well. So you can see right here, Eduardo, you're going to go to X313, Y255, and it will go there every single time. That's what I'm excited about. Being able to directly affect or position things, no matter the size, is huge. So I'm very, very, very thankful that Storyline is giving us that capability. So that is referencing an object and positioning. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is some of the properties. In this API, it's allowing us to adjust properties. If you're not familiar with the term properties, it's inside of any type of programming or any type of authoring tool. When you select an object, in fact, in Storyline, you actually are affecting properties under the Format tab, and you're affecting X and Y and width and height and color and opacity and other things like that. You're adjusting these properties. Now with this API, we can actually adjust those same type of properties, but in JavaScript. So we're able to adjust the depth. And I have a video that you could check out, and you could check out all previous kind of JavaScript videos that I have that tells you about the Z index, bringing things backwards and forwards. They have this in the API, although they're calling it depth. That may change, I'm not sure, but they're calling it depth where they can adjust the depth of the objects. So giving us that capability is huge as well. Let me go ahead and preview this just so you can see the different properties that are available. Let's go back into our full desktop mode here so we can see the whole thing. So here's the depth properties. So when I click on the card behind it, you can see that it brings it up to the front. When I click this again, it brings it up to the front. So I'm able to adjust the depth of this. Now, I don't want to show you the code yet. We'll talk about the code once we take a look at the other things that are possible as well. So we can adjust the rotation. So we can adjust okay, is it rotated 90 degrees or 180 or something like that? This also goes back to what I was talking about before, is the positioning and direct positioning, where I can actually click on this and it goes right to the corner of an object. So you can get very specific with the stage, and you could talk about what the stage width and height are, and you can adjust and position things based on the stage width and height. You can also scale. So if I click on scale, I can scale up or I can scale down. I can adjust the opacity so you can see that it becomes more transparent here. I can adjust the state. So inside of JavaScript, I can change based on different logic or more complex logic that I'm building. I can adjust and change the state of an object. So you can see here that it's now changed that state of the object. I can also get the width and height. Now this, if I click on it, actually shows up in the console. So if I'm going to click on inspect, and I go into console, you can see that it gets the width and height of that object. So I could take the width and height of the object and I could do some calculations based on the width and height. In fact, that's what I'm doing here, is I'm positioning it to the width and height of the stage, but I'm minusing and taking into account the width and height of the object, so it doesn't get positioned off the stage. Because really what it positions at is the top left-hand corner of the object. So whatever the object is, the position is placed right here. But in order to make sure that it's positioned on the stage, I am minusing the width and height of that. Again, I'm going to go more into depth as time goes by. I have plenty of videos. I'm working on my JavaScript and Storyline course that's going to go into depth with a lot of this stuff. So those are our different properties that we can adjust. And let's just quickly take a look at some of these. So the depth right here, basically I'm referencing my objects, my rectangle 1, my rectangle 2, and then I'm basically just assigning rectangle 1 equals 1 or depth equals 1, so it's positioned on top. And then rectangle 1, which this is rectangle 1 right here, is positioned at the 0, and I forgot a semicolon right there. So that's all I had to do, was change that. So I'm going to click OK. And if I select this object right here, it now basically does the same thing. And so now rectangle 1 depth is 1 and rectangle 2 depth is 0. The rotation, if I come into the rotation, all I have to do is say rectangle 3, which is the name of my object right here. Rotation equals 45. Simple as that, 45 degrees. This is where it gets a little bit more complex because I have to take the slide width and then I minus the oval 1, which is this right here. I'm minusing the width of that, but I'm able to use the width of that object in order to determine where it needs to go. I don't need to do that with the Y because the Y is at the very top left-hand side right here. So it's just going to position it to the slide there, or the 0 position there. The scale, so if I come into the scale right here, it just basically scale and then 50. That's 50%. So if you have 100, it's not going to make any difference because it already is 100%. But if you have 150, it's going to be 50% more of 100. So it's going to be 150% there. So that's how it's doing that calculation there. Opacity, so as simple as saying dot opacity equals 20%. And then also the state. And so this one was a little bit different. So it's going to set a random number and between 1 and 5. So when you click on it, I'm just setting the variable. And then I believe I am listening for that variable to change right here. So right here, when the variable changes, it is basically going to take whatever that variable is. And then it's going to, if it's variable 1, change it to the default state. If it's variable 2, change it to red. If it's variable 3, change it to green. So that's how it's changing it to that. Now, this is another improvement right here. And I think this was already there before, but I always used the longer version of it, which still works. But now you can just say get bar and then have the variable in order to get the information. You can also set bar, be able to set it back as well. Okay, so I still have a lot to show you. Let's go into the core functions, and I'm going to go through this quick. And in my course, I'll dive in really in depth on these different things as well. All right, so hit M for location of the mouse. And so if I hit M, I'm basically inspecting. So let's go into this, and it's the exact spot. It's grabbing the exact spot of where my mouse was. And you can see right here, it is actually updating the position of my mouse as I move my mouse. So you can get the mouse location, and based on the mouse location, you could do something as well. In fact, you can even change the pointer to an object. So you can see right here, this pointer, I hit the pointer, and now that object is following my pointer. Now, if I click on get slide sizes, you can see the slide size right there. So those are different things that I can do for functions. I can get the mouse location, I can get the slide width and height, I can have an object follow the mouse. There's a lot that you can do here. I'm quickly going through that. I'm not going to show you the JavaScript there. Now, Storyline has an example like this, where it's basically updating the rotation based on the variable of the slider. So as I start to adjust my slider, notice how the rotation of that object also rotates here. And you can see what the dial value is down here. So I'm able to adjust that based on the variable amount. So what I'm doing here is basically doing from 0 to 360, and the rotation is a full 360 as well. So I can go a full 360 on this, and the rotation of the object will adjust. You can see right here, the rotation when the dial changes, it will basically just update the rotation. It'll get the variable of dial 1, which is the name of this object, and it will update it based on that. So it's not really animating it, it's basically just updating it with every variable change. All right, so let's go into this one right here. This is a basic animation. This is using a web animation, which I'm not completely sold on. I actually like GreenSock animation a lot better, which thankfully still works. But if you click here, you can see how it kind of bounces down a little bit and then it moves the object over. So if I come into here, and some people do like this a little bit better, notice how more complex this is, where I have to add the duration, easing, fill in. You have to add the starting transform and the ending transform as well. Again, some people may like that. That's great, but I don't think it's completely perfect. I actually like to do GreenSock, which is a little bit better, and you can reference my GreenSock videos. And in fact, all of the animations that you saw in the first one is actually GreenSock. So you add the Y position, you add the duration right in one line of code. But one of the nice things is you can actually add this to the timeline. So by adding this to the timeline right here, any custom animation can now be controlled by the timeline. So you can see there is my animation. It has rotation and it blurs a little bit. And if I move this back, you can see that it's controlled by the animation, which is pretty cool. So there is that capability. There is also this. Let's go into the follow the pointer. Now we saw this already a little bit with that little lightning bolt, but you can also position it a little bit off of the pointer. So in this case, it's a duck and it's following my pointer. So if I click start follow, you can see how it starts to follow my pointer there. Now I'm going to go into here. You can also have the rotation update and always point at your pointer as well. Using those same properties of where the pointer is at, you can adjust the rotation so it always adjusts based on where your mouse is at. There's also a parallax effect that I haven't played around with a lot, but this is an example of a little bit of GreenSock animation. So this basically, I'm saying if the card toggle, which I have a variable called card toggle, and I'm basically toggling it from true to false here. And there is an update function. Now this is huge as well because the update function continuously runs. And so you can add some code in here to continuously run until something is met or until you basically hit a certain variable or something like that. So what I'm doing here is I'm basically saying, get the variable, just constantly get the variable amount. So if it's false, I'm going to animate in card 1, but if it's true, I'm going to animate in card 2. So that's essentially what it's doing here. So now if I preview this, by default it's false, so my card 1 is going to animate in automatically, but I'm going to go in here and change this to true. And so now my card 2 automatically adds in. And I think the animation for GSAP is a lot smoother from what I've been able to tell at least. So I'm going to just toggle that again. There's my card 1, toggle this again, card 2. Now I'm going to go really fast. Notice how smooth that actually happens here. So it just automatically picks up on where it's at, and you can see that it will just animate in there. So that update function continuously runs, and so it's always looking for what variable, what's the variable? Is it true or is it false? Is it true or is it false? Now to play along with that, what I did here is I have this little dial. Now, at first, I actually updated the cards to animate in based on the dial changing. What I found, though, is it started to overload. It started to get really choppy, and it's a little bit more choppy still inside of Storyline when I preview it inside of Storyline. But when I publish it out, it looks a lot smoother. But let's just see what this looks like so far. All right, so I'm going to change the dial, and then I'm going to click on change card. Now, again, I was having these cards animate in on change dial, but I was getting several cards because the variable changes so rapidly as your dial changes. The cards were coming in too fast, and I think that's what was causing it to bog down a little bit. So instead of doing that, I'm changing the dial, and then I'm clicking on change card. Not ideal, but it's just the way that I got it to work around here. So if I click that, you can see that it animates in. If I adjust this to 8, click on change card, you can see it animates out, and then the new card animates in. And it's a lot smoother once I publish this out as well. In fact, I want to do that real quick just so you can see, just so you believe me, that it is a lot smoother. I'm going to go ahead and publish this out to the web here. Sometimes I think you're thinking, I don't believe you, Jeff. I need to see it. So that's what I'm doing here. All right, so there is my project. I'll double click on story.html. You saw the little cards animating in, and you can see how smooth that is. Just being able to animate in and animate out. All right, so I'm going to go to the card switcher. Let's go to the switch card first, and you can see how quickly that comes in and out. But let's go to the card switcher now, and I'll adjust the dial, click on change card, and there you can see, and I could speed that up if I wanted to. Well, let's have that animate out and the new card animate in. So much capability. And yes, I get overexcited about this thing, and yes, it's not perfect. There are a lot of things that I wish it still did. There's a lot of things that it could still do in the future. And that's why I see this is just the beginning. This is like, okay, this is something that I've wanted for a while, and it's something that I finally got. So it's just like the holidays. We just had the holidays barely. So I'm excited for it. It's like a new present, basically. So I'm able to play around with this and see that it is a good first step. This allows us to have a little bit more flexibility than what it was before. And it allows us to reference objects a lot easier, allows us to add update functions and have something running all the time. It allows us to get exact positioning. It allows, that alone, to be able to adjust the positioning is huge. I would take that and the object referencing just by itself and be excited about that. So there's a lot of that to come. This, like I mentioned, is the beta version. I don't know when it's going to be out. It depends on the testing. It depends on the feedback. It depends on what Storyline feels and the Storyline team feels like needs to happen before it gets released to the general public. But it's something to look forward to. It's something to know that, hey, Storyline is making these changes that make it a whole lot more flexible than it has been in the past. So that's why I go back to that I'm excited about it. It's a good first update, and it's just going to get better from here. If you want to check out more, you can head on over to my website at learningdojo.ninja. You can check out all of my previous blog posts, which I have a new community and new blog. So you can check out all of the different topics here as well, and it will filter it out quickly. You can download templates here on the left-hand side, and these are all free templates. And then you can check out full courses, including my JavaScript and Articulate Storyline course that is not out yet. I am recording it at the moment, and once I have at least 2 sections done, I'm going to open it up for early preview, and people can actually go in and start testing it out and start consuming it at that point while I continue to add more. So that is my plan. But you can also check out courses on Articulate Rise, XAPI fundamentals, and everything you need to know in Articulate Storyline 360. If you like what you've seen here, head on over to my YouTube channel, click the like button, subscribe to my channel, as well as hit the bell notification so you get notified of all future videos as they come out. That really helps my channel, allows me to continue to grow, so I can continue to create these videos for you to help you become the best learning developer that you can be and really extend and customize e-learning courses to make them a whole lot better. That's my goal of this channel. But that's all I have for you today, so thanks everyone, and I'll see you next time.